The grand ballroom of a prestigious hotel, filled with well-dressed professionals and high-profile investors. The air is thick with the hum of conversation, the clink of glasses, and the quiet rustle of expensive suits. The lights are dimmed, and the sparkling chandeliers cast a warm glow over the room, as the industry's biggest players gather for an annual gala. At the center of it all, James stands by the balcony, his eyes scanning the crowd, lost in thought. James, the CEO of one of the leading real estate firms, had always prided himself on being the most competent, the most strategic, and the most focused. He was a man driven by ambition, his entire life centered around his work and the success of his company. There was no room for distractions, especially not ones as trivial as love. Yet, tonight, at the gala, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. The usual sharpness that came with every negotiation, every decision, seemed muted tonight. He'd been forced to attend this event because it was critical to his company's future, but his mind kept wandering. As his eyes scanned the crowd once more, they locked on a woman across the room. She stood near a group of investors, talking animatedly and laughing with ease, as though she belonged in the center of the room because she did. Her beauty was striking, but it wasn't just her looks that made her stand out. It was the quiet confidence she exuded, the way she held herself, effortlessly commanding attention. The kind of attention that made even the most powerful businessmen in the room pause and take notice. James's, internally, as he watches her, who is she? His eyes remained fixed on her, but she hadn't noticed him yet. He could tell she wasn't like the other women in the room. There was something about her, the way she carried herself, the elegance in every movement, the intelligence in her eyes. She wasn't just a socialite or a pretty face. No, she had something more. And for the first time in a long while, James found himself intrigued. As if on cue, one of the investors she was conversing with excused himself, and she turned toward the balcony. That was when their eyes met. For a brief second, everything seemed to slow down. James held her gaze, his heart beating a little faster than usual. She smiled politely, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was as if she was already sizing him up, measuring him, just like he was doing to her. Hannah's, warm yet guarded. As she steps closer to him, I didn't expect to find someone like you here. James's, cool and professional, though there's an edge of curiosity in his tone, and what kind of person would that be? His tone was neutral, but inside, he couldn't help the slight unease that had begun to settle in. There was something about her presence that felt ... different. Something that made him feel off balance, which he wasn't accustomed to. Hannah's, with a slight smile, almost as if she's toying with him, someone who doesn't blend into the crowd. Most of the people here are either too busy kissing up to get ahead or too self-absorbed to even notice the people around them. But you seem like you don't belong in either group. James raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her directness. He couldn't deny if she was sharp, perceptive, and clearly not intimidated by the elite atmosphere of the gala. There was an honesty in her voice that made him want to keep talking to her, even though he knew he shouldn't be distracted. James's, with a touch of amusement, his gaze steady on hers. And what group do you think I belong in? Hannah's, thoughtful, as she steps closer. I think you belong in a league of your own. Mr. King. The name caught him off guard. His reputation preceded him in the business world, but he wasn't used to hearing it from someone who wasn't already familiar with his company or his work. There was something both flattering and unsettling about her insight. James's, slightly intrigued, but still guarded, and you are. Hannah chuckled softly, the sound rich and genuine. There was a playfulness in her expression, but her eyes remained steady, almost challenging him to try and figure her out. Hannah's, with a mischievous smile, Hannah Matthews. You might have heard of my father's company, but I prefer not to mention it too often. She paused for a moment, gauging his reaction. He didn't flinch, but she could see the slight shift in his expression. He recognized the name. The Matthews Group was a giant in the real estate market, and her father was one of his main competitors. The moment of tension hung in the air. They were both aware of the rivalry between their families. It was something unspoken, but it was there, lurking beneath the surface of their polite conversation. However, neither of them seemed particularly fazed by it. In fact, James found himself feeling more curious about her than he had about anyone in a long time. James's, with a slight smirk, so, the daughter of one of my competitors. I should be careful not to share too much. Then, Hannah's eyes twinkling with humor, not at all. I'm not here to steal your secrets, Mr. King. I'm just here for a conversation. The conversation continued, moving away from business and onto lighter topics. But both of them could feel the undeniable tension between them. James had spent so many years focused on his company, building it from the ground up, that he hadn't allowed himself the luxury of a meaningful conversation with anyone outside of work. But Hannah was different. There was something about her that made him feel human again. Later that evening, as the event drew to a close, they exchanged business cards and parted ways. But for James, the night wasn't over. He couldn't shake the image of Hannah's smile, her eyes, the way she made him feel like he was more than just a CEO. It had been a long time since he'd felt that way, and as he walked back to his car, he found himself wondering how long it would take before he saw her again. A week later, the glow of the office lights is dimmed by the evening twilight. James sits in his office, his thoughts drifting to Hannah. Ever since their first encounter at the gala, he's found himself distracted by her sharp wit, the way she looked at him, her challenging yet playful demeanor. He had promised himself he wouldn't let anything or anyone distract him, especially someone tied to a rival company. But he couldn't help it. James pushes the thoughts aside as he looks over a stack of documents on his desk. His company's future depends on the major merger they're working on, and the deadline is fast approaching. But as the night grows longer, he finds his mind wandering back to Hannah. The way her eyes met his when she spoke, the softness in her voice that was so different from the calculated professionalism of the corporate world. Meanwhile, Hannah sits in her own office at the Matthews Group, facing a similar dilemma. She hasn't been able to stop thinking about James either. Their conversation at the gala had felt more like a spark than a simple exchange of words. It was clear that they were both playing a game, whether they liked it or not. Their families were competitors in the real estate world, and that would always put them at odds. But there was something about him that intrigued her. The phone on her desk rings, pulling her from her thoughts. She answers it, her voice professional, but her mind still partially focused on the encounter with James. Hannah's cool but polite hello. Voice on the other end, urgent and businesslike. Hannah, it's about the project with King Enterprises. We've got a problem. It seems their team has been ahead of us on some of the key details. I think we need to move faster if we're going to secure this deal. Hannah's heart sinks. She had anticipated the competition, but now the pressure was mounting. She glances at her computer screen, where a news article about James King is open in a tab. He's been pushing aggressively into the markets her family controls. and his company's rapid rise has her on edge. Hannah's firm and decisive understood. I'll arrange a meeting with the team first thing tomorrow. We'll adjust the strategy and get back on track. I'll handle this personally. She hangs up, letting out a deep breath. This was more than just business now. She could feel the stakes rising, and she knew that James was playing the game as fiercely as she was. But there was still something unspoken between them. She needed to figure out what that was. Later that evening, as the city lights twinkle from the window of her office, Hannah makes a decision. She picks up her phone and dials a number. A few rings later, it's answered. Hannah's casually confident "Hi, it's Hannah. I'd like to set up a meeting with James King. You can tell him I'm calling on behalf of the Matthews Group. We need to talk strategy." Voice on the other end. "Surprised, but obliging. You sure about that?" "I mean, he's been pretty focused on his company's side of things lately." Hannah's, with a subtle smirk, "I'm sure. Trust me, it's time we spoke directly." She hangs up the phone, feeling a rush of anticipation. The next move is hers to make, and she's determined to make it count. The next day, James enters his office, greeted by his assistant, who hands him a message. "Assistance, businesslike Mr. King. There's a meeting request from Ms. Matthews. She's requesting a sit-down with you to discuss the upcoming project. She mentioned that it's regarding strategy." James's, raising an eyebrow. "Ms. Matthews? Why would she want to meet with me directly?" He feels a slight unease in his stomach, a mix of curiosity and caution. He hasn't been able to stop thinking about Hannah, but their family's rivalry runs deep, and meeting with her could complicate things. Still, he feels an undeniable pull. Maybe it's time they cleared the air. He picks up the phone and calls his assistant back. James's, decisive, "Set it up. I'll meet her at 3 p.m. today. The time for talking is over." James knows that this meeting will either solidify their partnership or create an even deeper rift between them. But he's tired of hiding behind the facade of professionalism. It's time to face the inevitable. Later that afternoon, James arrives at the luxurious office of the Matthews Group, the glass walls offering a sweeping view of the city skyline. As he steps into the sleek, minimalist conference room, he's surprised to see Hannah already seated at the table. She looks as poised and composed as ever, but there's a certain intensity in her eyes today. Hannah's, cool, but with a hint of challenge. "Thank you for meeting with me." James's, his tone neutral, but his curiosity clear, "Of course, Hannah. I'm curious to know what you want to discuss. After all, we're competitors, not friends." Hannah's, sharp yet diplomatic. "That's exactly why we need to talk. If we're going to keep fighting over this project, we'll both lose. But if we work together, we both stand to gain." The words hang in the air. James leans forward, his eyes studying her intently. There's no doubt she's smart, her proposal is sound, but there's something more. The spark that existed between them during their first meeting is alive again. But now, it's not just business. There's a personal undertone to their conversation, something neither of them can ignore. James is intrigued but cautious. "Work together. You're asking for a lot, considering who we are." Hannah's, with a slight smile. "We both want the same thing, James, to win. But the question is, are you willing to play by my rules?" James leans back in his chair, his expression unreadable. The challenge is clear, but so is the attraction between them. He can't ignore it anymore. For the first time, he begins to wonder if this meeting is about more than just business. James's, low and contemplative. "I don't know if I trust you, Hannah. But I can't deny that you're interesting." Hannah's confidently, with a hint of flirtation. "Good. Let's see if you're interested enough to listen to what I have to offer." The room falls silent for a moment, the air thick with anticipation. This meeting, though seemingly about business, is far from ordinary. Both James and Hannah know that this is more than just a power play, a game of trust, of emotions, and of decisions that will affect not just their companies, but their future as well. The following day, the city outside is bustling, but inside the towering Matthews Group building, it's quieter than usual. James and Hannah had parted ways after their first meeting, with an agreement to discuss further details about their potential collaboration. But as the hours passed, neither could shake the feeling that their conversation had been about more than just business. Now, as James steps into his office, he's greeted with his usual routine: phone calls, emails, reports. Yet, his mind keeps wandering back to Hannah too, the way she looked at him, the way her words held a mixture of challenge and attraction. It's a dangerous game, he knows that. But something about her feels ... different. The competition between their companies, the rivalry between their families, doesn't seem to matter as much as it once did. What matters now is what lies beneath all that attention, an undeniable pull that's only growing stronger. James is speaking to himself as he stands by the window, looking out over the city. Focus. "James, you have a business to run." He runs a hand through his hair, trying to clear his mind, but it's no use. Hannah has left an impression, and he can't ignore it any longer. Meanwhile, Hannah is at her desk, her eyes fixed on the email from James confirming their next meeting. It's scheduled for the afternoon, and she knows this will be the pivotal moment, the one where they decide whether they can truly work together or whether their relationship will remain mired in the complexities of family. Rivalry. Her thoughts drift back to their conversation. The way he challenged her, the way she responded with equal determination. She knew she was playing a dangerous game, but the stakes were too high to back down. If they could secure this deal, both of their companies would dominate the market. But working with James meant something more. There was a part of her that couldn't deny the attraction, the chemistry between them, and that made everything more complicated. Hannah's speaking to herself as she picks up the phone to call her father's assistant. "Make sure we're ready for the meeting with King Enterprises tomorrow. This deal needs to go smoothly, no mistakes." She hangs up, then glances at the clock. It's almost time for her meeting with James, and she can't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She knows what this could mean, not just for the companies, but for her own future. And she's not sure if she's ready for what lies ahead. Later that afternoon, James arrives at the Matthews Group headquarters for their second meeting. This time, the atmosphere feels different. The tension between him and Hannah is palpable, like an invisible force in the room. They've been avoiding the subject of their attraction, keeping the conversation strictly professional. But now, as they face each other again, that professional facade feels thinner. James's. As he steps into the conference room and looks at Hannah, "Let's get down to business." Nodding, but with a hint of amusement in her tone. "Of course. But I think we both know this is more than just business." "James," her words hang in the air, and for a moment, neither of them speaks. There's a shift in the room, an unspoken understanding that neither can deny. The competitive banter between them has turned into something else, something deeper. James is cool, but with a trace of curiosity. You don't beat around the bush, do you, Hannah? Hannah's confidently leaning forward. Why waste time pretending, James? We both know what this is, but we can't let it distract us from the bigger picture. James watches her for a moment, his expression unreadable. He's trying to stay focused, but the way she challenges him so effortlessly makes it hard to ignore the growing attraction between them. He knows that if he allows himself to get too close, it could jeopardize everything. The stakes are high, and he can't afford to make a mistake. James's carefully measured, "You're right. We need to focus on the merger. But there's no denying that things between us are ... complicated." Hannah smiles, a glint of something knowing in her eyes. Hannah's teasing, "complicated." That's an understatement, but I think we both know we can handle it. After all, we're both professionals, aren't we? The room is charged with tension. There's no denying that their professional relationship is a delicate balance, and the growing personal connection only adds to the complexity. They both know that working together will mean navigating a minefield of family expectations, business strategies, and unspoken desires. James's voice, low and steady. "We'll see, Hannah. We'll see if we can keep things strictly business." As the meeting continues, they dive into the details of the project, their discussions moving swiftly from one topic to another. But beneath it all, the unspoken tension remains. They're both aware of the attraction, but they're careful not to let it interfere with the deal. Yet, with every glance, every word spoken, it becomes harder to ignore. The meeting eventually concludes, but neither of them is ready to part ways just yet. They linger in the room, the silence between them thick with unsaid words. Hannah's breaking the silence, voice softer than before. "James ... She pauses, as if considering her next words carefully. James's, a touch of curiosity, and perhaps something more. "What is it, Hannah?" Hannah's, with a hint of vulnerability. "I just want to make sure we're on the same page. This project, it's important, not just for our companies, but for everything we've both worked for. I need to know you're as committed as I am." James is nodding slowly. "You have my word. I'm committed. But we need to keep our eyes on the goal. Everything else can wait." The air between them shifts again, and for a moment, it feels like there's nothing left but the shared understanding between them. Business will always come first, but the attraction between them is undeniable. The question is, how long can they keep it at bay? As the door closes behind them, they both step out into the world of competition, ambition, and desire. They know the challenges ahead are only beginning, but they also know that nothing will ever be the same again. The morning after the meeting, the early light filters through the glass windows of James's penthouse office, casting long shadows across his desk. Despite the success of their discussions, James feels unsettled. The tension between him and Hannah is growing more intense with every passing moment, and he can't seem to focus on anything else. His phone buzzes with notifications, but he ignores them. His thoughts are consumed by her. He leans back in his chair, staring out at the skyline, lost in thought. The merger is important, yes, but something about Hannah has been gnawing at him ever since their last meeting. She's not just the daughter of his competitor anymore. She's someone he can't ignore, someone whose presence lingers in his mind long after the business discussions end. Meanwhile, Hannah is at the Matthews Group office, pacing back and forth in her private office. The walls are lined with sleek modern art, and the large desk in front of her is cluttered with reports. Despite the quiet beauty of the room, there's no peace in her heart. The conversation with James yesterday left her feeling conflicted. He's everything she's been taught to stay away from, the son of her father's biggest rival, someone she should consider an adversary. But the way he looked at her, the way their words seemed to carry an extra weight. It was undeniable, Hannah's, speaking softly to herself as she stares at a photo of her father on the wall. I can't afford distractions. This is about more than just me. But even as she says this, she knows she's not being entirely honest with herself. She's caught between duty to her family and the pull she feels toward James. The truth is, she wants him, and that frightens her more than anything else. Later that afternoon, both James and Hannah receive an unexpected invitation. A gala dinner hosted by one of the top real estate moguls in the city. A chance for the most influential people in the industry to mingle and celebrate the success of their ventures. It's a high-profile event, and of course, both are expected to attend. For Hannah, it's a chance to network with potential investors and get her father's approval. For James, it's another event to solidify his position at the top. When Hannah arrives at the venue, she's immediately greeted by familiar faces. The gala is in full swing, filled with businessmen and women dressed in their finest attire, the room buzzing with conversation. But as she scans the crowd, her eyes inevitably land on James. He's standing by the bar, a glass of whiskey in hand, deep in conversation with a potential client. His presence in the room is commanding, and for a moment, she feels the stirrings of something deep inside her, a mix of attraction and apprehension. Hannah's, muttering under her breath as she approaches the bar, "Get it together, Hannah. This is just another event." She steps up beside him, and James turns to look at her, his expression softening ever so slightly when he sees her. There's a moment of mutual recognition, the weight of their unspoken tension lingering between them. He raises his glass in a small, almost imperceptible gesture of greeting. James's, voice low, with a hint of amusement. "Didn't expect to see you here. This isn't exactly your usual scene, is it?" Hannah smiles, though it's tinged with something more playful. She's never one to shy away from challenges, and James is no exception. This is an opportunity, after all, a chance to prove she can navigate both the world of business and the complexities of their personal dynamics. Hannah's, with a touch of humor as she picks up her own glass. "I think you might be underestimating me. James, I know my way around events like this." Their conversation starts off light, a mixture of banter and casual business talk. But as the evening wears on, the undercurrent between them becomes impossible to ignore. Every glance lingers longer than it should. Every word carries a weight that isn't strictly professional. The distance between them seems to shrink with each passing minute. Eventually, the conversation shifts to the upcoming merger, something they both know is inevitable, but have been avoiding for weeks. James knows it's coming, but he's still not sure how Hannah will play her cards. He can't help but notice how she seems to be navigating their conversation with a kind of careful precision, as if she's not only playing the business game, but something deeper. James is more serious now. "You know this merger is crucial for both of our companies, right? The stakes couldn't be higher. We can't afford to let anything get in the way." Hannah's, voice steady. "But there's an edge to it now. I know exactly what's at stake, James, and trust me, I'm fully committed to seeing it through." There's a long silence between them, and for the first time that evening, the personal tension between them seems to spill over into their professional conversation. Hannah is trying to hold her ground, trying to maintain control, but James can see through her mask. He knows she's struggling with something deeper, something more than just business. James is, quietly, as he leans in slightly, "Are you sure? I'm not asking for your loyalty, Hannah, but I need to know if you're with me on this." Her eyes meet his, and for a moment, the world seems to disappear around them. The noise of the gala fades, the faces blur, and all that remains is the connection between them and yet undeniable. Hannah's softer now, almost a whisper. "I'm with you, James, but this can't be just about business anymore. Not for me." The words hang in the air, and James feels his heart race for a split second. She's saying what he's been too afraid to acknowledge. This isn't just business anymore. It never was. But that's the problem. They're walking a fine line, balancing everything they've worked for against the raw, undeniable attraction they both feel before either of them can say anything else. They're interrupted by the host, calling everyone to the main hall for dinner. The moment is broken, but the weight of what was said lingers between them as they walk toward the dining area together. Side by side, it's clear that this is no longer just about the merger. This is about something deeper, something that neither of them can ignore anymore. The stakes are higher than they've ever been, and now the question isn't just about who wins the deal. It's about what they're willing to risk for each other. The next morning, the aftermath of the gala still lingers in the air. Both James and Hannah wake up with the remnants of last night's conversation weighing heavily on their minds. The line between business and personal desires is becoming increasingly blurred, and the tension between them is palpable. Both of them know the risks, but neither can deny the connection that has begun to form. James arrives at his office earlier than usual, the weight of the upcoming merger pressing down on him. He's been distracted, and he knows it. The merger is a critical move for his company's future, but the more he thinks about it, the more he wonders if something bigger is at play. He tries to push the thought of Hannah out of his mind, but every time he closes his eyes, her face appears. Her words from last night echo in his mind, and he knows that this isn't just a professional relationship anymore. He sits at his desk, staring at the pile of paperwork in front of him, but his focus is elsewhere. His phone buzzes with a message. It's from his assistant's message on the screen. Hannah Matthews just confirmed she'll be joining the board meeting today. She says it's urgent. James exhales sharply, feeling a twinge of unease. Why does she need to be there? He's been preparing for this meeting for days, but the thought of facing her now, after last night, makes his heart beat a little faster. He knows she's clever, but he also knows that she's not just there for business anymore. The question is, what does she want? As the meeting time approaches, Hannah is preparing herself as well. She's sitting in her own office, looking at the reflection of herself in the glass window. She's been through so much in the past few days, torn between family expectations and her own desires. But last night, something shifted. She couldn't deny the chemistry between her and James, and the more she tried to bury it, the stronger it became. Hannah's. Speaking to herself quietly, this isn't just business anymore, and I know it. She takes a deep breath, stands up, and walks toward the door, ready to face James. She's not sure what will happen in this meeting, but she knows she needs to lay her cards on the table. It's time to stop pretending that their connection doesn't exist. When James and Hannah meet in the conference room, the air between them is thick with anticipation. There's no need for pleasantries. They both know the real issue now. The merger, the future, and the growing tension between them as the meeting begins. James immediately gets to the point. James is professional, but with an edge of frustration. I've reviewed the numbers. The merger is on track, but there are some discrepancies in the projections. If we don't adjust our strategy, we could be facing a setback. Calm but assertive, I've already reviewed the projections myself. James, I don't think you're seeing the bigger picture. We're moving too fast, and we're ignoring some key factors that could affect the long-term success of this project. Their voices rise, each trying to convince the other that their approach is the right one. The conversation quickly becomes heated, the tension escalating with every passing minute. It's clear that they both want the same outcome, but they're approaching it from different angles. Their professional rivalry is as strong as ever, but now there's a deeper, more personal layer to it. James is frustrated and a little more forceful. Hannah, this isn't about your personal vendetta against me or my company. This is about making the best decision for both our futures. Hannah stands up, her voice steady but filled with unspoken emotion. Hannah's, with a touch of raw honesty, I'm not doing this for you, James. I'm doing this for myself. I've spent my whole life being told what to do, what's best for me. But now, I'm the one who decides. She takes a step closer, her gaze fixed on his, her words tinged with an intensity that surprises even her. Hannah's, softer but still firm, you're right. This isn't just about business anymore. It never was. But if you're going to continue pretending that we're just two people sitting at a table discussing numbers, you're lying to both of us. The words hang in the air, heavy and charged with emotion. For a moment, James doesn't know what to say. He's been avoiding the truth, but Hannah just laid it all out. He's not used to being called out, especially not by someone who's supposed to be his rival. But the honesty in her voice stirs something inside him. His tone shifting, quieter now. I never wanted this to get personal, Hannah, but I can't keep pretending either. The moment is charged with unspoken words, and they stand there, facing each other, aware of the shift that has just occurred between them. The conversation about the merger feels secondary now, as if it's no longer just a business decision. It's a decision about how they will move forward, both as professionals and as individuals. Hannah's voice steady but laced with something softer. I don't know what you want from me, James, but if you're willing to stop pretending, if you're willing to see me for who I am and not just as your competition, maybe we can make this work. Maybe we can make everything work. James looks at her, his mind racing. This is no longer about just a deal, a merger, or a rivalry. This is about something deeper, something they both know they can't ignore. He feels the weight of the decision in front of him, the pull of the attraction that has only grown stronger between them. James is, quietly, but with a new sense of resolve. I don't know where this goes, but I'm willing to find out, together, for the first time. Hannah smiles, a real smile, not one of politeness or strategy. It's a smile that's full of possibility, and for the first time, the tension between them doesn't feel like an obstacle. It feels like an opportunity. The meeting ends, but the atmosphere between them has shifted. They've crossed a line they can't uncross. The future of the merger, their companies, and their personal lives are now intertwined in a way that neither of them fully understands. But for the first time in a long time, James feels like he's on the edge of something that could change everything. A few days later, the atmosphere in both James's office and Hannah's is tense, though not necessarily because of the work. The merger is progressing, but there's something deeper at play now. James can't shake the memory of their last meeting, the way Hannah had looked at him, the raw honesty in her voice, and the subtle vulnerability she'd shown. But more than that, he feels a shift in himself. He's beginning to wonder if he can separate his personal feelings from his professional duties. And that scares him. Hannah, too, has been struggling with the consequences of her actions. The attraction between them has only grown, and the lines between what's professional and what's personal have become so blurred that she's not sure which one she's prioritizing anymore. She knows her feelings for James are no longer just about competition or business, rivalry. She wants him. And the realization hits her like a tidal wave. The day begins with the usual pressures of the office, but neither James nor Hannah can focus on anything but the inevitable conversation that looms ahead. The day of the big presentation to the board is fast approaching, and both of them know that it will be a critical moment, not just for the future of their companies, but for their personal dynamic. James arrives at his office early, as usual. The city below is waking up, and his mind is already racing through the final details for the presentation. But as he sits down at his desk and opens his laptop, he can't focus on the numbers or the strategies. He's distracted by Hannah, by the way she had looked at him the last time they spoke, and by the vulnerability in her voice. He runs a hand through his hair in frustration. James is muttering to himself, frustrated, focus James, the merger. The merger is the priority. He's been repeating this mantra to himself for days, but it's not working. Every time he tries to push thoughts of Hannah out of his mind, they only seem to grow louder. Meanwhile, Hannah is sitting in her office, her fingers tapping anxiously on the edge of her desk. She's going over the figures for the merger one last time, but her mind keeps wandering back to James. She can't deny it anymore. She's falling for him, but she knows that being with him could jeopardize everything she's worked for, everything her family expects from her. Hannah's speaking quietly to herself, I can't lose focus. I can't let this, whatever this is between us, ruin everything. But despite her best efforts, Hannah can't stop thinking about James's intensity, his confidence, and the way he had looked at her with that mix of curiosity and challenge. It's almost like a magnetic force, pulling her in deeper. She knows she needs to stay professional, but a part of her wonders if they're both too far gone to turn back. As the day drags on, the inevitable happens. James and Hannah are scheduled to meet again to finalize their plans for the merger presentation. This time, however, there's a palpable difference in the air. Neither of them can ignore the growing connection, but both are determined to push it aside for the sake of their careers. Or so they think. When they meet in the conference room later that afternoon, the tension is thick. There's a sharpness in Hannah's eyes, a quiet intensity that only James seems to notice. He's been trying to focus on the presentation, but every time he looks at her, the words start to blur. James's, as he opens the folder of documents, trying to focus on the business at hand. We need to make sure the projections are solid for the board tomorrow. If we want this merger to succeed, we can't afford any mistakes. Hannah nods, though she's clearly not paying attention to the papers in front of her. She's too aware of the space between them, of the tension that's building with every passing moment. Their eyes meet, and for a brief second, neither of them speaks. It's a charged silence, filled with unspoken words. Hannah's. Finally breaking the silence, her tone steady but with a hint of vulnerability. James, we need to talk. James looks up at her, surprised by the shift in her tone. It's not the usual professional distance he's accustomed to. There's something more, something raw. James's, cautiously, his gaze softening. What's on your mind, Hannah? Hannah's, with a quiet intensity. This, whatever this is between us, it's not just business anymore, and you know it. I can't pretend it's just about the merger. The words hang in the air between them. And for a moment, James doesn't know how to respond. He's been trying to keep everything separate: his feelings, his work, his personal desires. But now, as Hannah opens up, the lines are no longer as clear. James's, his voice low and steady, but there's an underlying urgency. I've tried to keep this about business, Hannah, but I can't deny what's between us. I know we've both been dancing around it, pretending like it's just professional. But it's not. I want more than just this deal. Hannah's heart skips a beat at his words. For the first time, she sees the raw honesty in his eyes. This isn't just about power plays or strategy anymore. This is about them, about the connection they've both tried so hard to ignore. Hannah's, quietly, almost with relief. I've been trying to fight it. James, I've been telling myself that this isn't the right time, that we can't mix business and personal. But I can't pretend anymore. The moment stretches out, their eyes locked in a silent understanding. The truth is finally out in the open. The chemistry between them has become impossible to ignore, and neither of them knows what to do next. It's not just about the merger anymore, it's about them, and everything they're trying to navigate in the midst of this explosive connection. James is finally breaking the tension. His words quiet but filled with certainty. Then let's stop pretending, Hannah. We can't ignore this, and we shouldn't. But we also have to figure out how to move forward with this. With everything else, Hannah's a soft smile tugging at her lips. I agree. No more pretending. They sit in silence for a few more moments, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. James knows that they've crossed a line now, and there's no turning back. But in that moment, he feels more certain about the future than he ever has before. Whatever happens next, they'll face it together. The future of the merger, their companies, and their relationship, all of it is uncertain. But for the first time, they're no longer afraid to face it. The morning after their conversation, the air is thick with uncertainty, and James and Hannah have both retreated into their respective worlds. The weight of their confessions from the previous night has settled in, but neither of them is quite sure what comes next. The merger is still looming, and with it, the consequences of their growing personal involvement. In James's office, the morning light pours in through the large windows, but his desk remains untouched. He's been staring at the same set of documents for hours, unable to focus. His thoughts keep drifting back to Hannah. The truth is, their connection is more complicated than he ever anticipated. He never expected to feel this way, especially not about the daughter of his greatest rival. As his phone rings, James snaps out of his reverie. It's his assistant with an update about the merger. Assistants, professional Mr. King. The board meeting is scheduled for this afternoon. Are you ready to present the final proposal? James's, with a sigh, trying to focus on business. Yes, I'll be there. But we need to make sure we're prepared for every contingency. This merger cannot afford any mistakes. He hangs up, but the tension in his chest doesn't ease. He knows that today's meeting will be a critical moment, not just for the companies, but for his future with Hannah. She will be there as a representative of her father's company, and everything they've discussed so far will be on the table. Meanwhile, Hannah is pacing in her office, reviewing the final figures for the merger one last time. She's been feeling off balance ever since their confession. The power dynamics in the room have shifted, and she knows that they can't go back to being just business partners now. Every glance, every word exchanged with James carries more weight than before. Her father's company has been a cornerstone of her life, and she's worked hard to get where she is. But now that James is involved, it's harder to separate business from the personal feelings she's developed for him. And the worst part, she's not sure what she wants anymore. Hannah's softly to herself as she stares at her phone. What have I done? What are we doing? As the day passes, the inevitable arrives. James and Hannah meet in the conference room with the rest of the team. The board meeting begins with the usual formalities, but today there's an undercurrent of tension in the air. Their team members exchange nervous glances, sensing that something has changed between the two leaders of the companies. As the presentation continues, James and Hannah fall into their roles, presenting the merger details to the board. But the conversation feels off. There's an unspoken distance between them now, something that wasn't there before. Every time they make eye contact, it's almost as if they're searching for something deeper, something beyond business. James is confident, but his eyes flickering to Hannah occasionally. We've taken every possible risk into account. This merger is what both of our companies need to stay competitive. The numbers are sound and the strategy is solid. If we move forward, we'll dominate the market. Hannah's steady, but there's a hidden tension in her tone. I agree, but I also think we need to be cautious. This isn't just about profits, it's about the long-term impact. We need to ensure that we're not sacrificing our integrity in the process. James feels a pang of guilt. He's been so consumed by his feelings for Hannah that he hasn't fully considered the ethical concerns she's raised. The deal has been about power, success, and their own ambitions, but Hannah has a point. They need to ensure that they're doing this for the right reasons, not just to win. As the meeting continues, the tension between James and Hannah grows. Their professional relationship is no longer as clear-cut as it once was. There are too many feelings involved now, and neither of them knows how to navigate the blurred lines. Finally, after what seems like hours, the meeting ends with the usual formalities. The board members file out of the room, but James and Hannah are left standing in the aftermath. James is quiet as he looks at Hannah, his tone sincere but filled with uncertainty. I can't pretend that things are the same anymore, Hannah. We've crossed a line, and I don't know how to go back to just being colleagues after this. Almost a whisper as she steps closer to him. I feel the same way. James, I've been trying to compartmentalize everything business, family, personal, but I can't. I'm not sure what this is anymore. What we have. James takes a step closer, the distance between them shrinking. The space they've maintained in the past feels impossibly large now. He wants to reach out, but he knows the risks. If they cross that line again, there may be no coming back from it. James's, his gaze intense, but filled with quiet determination. I can't promise you that this won't get complicated, but I don't want to walk away from whatever this is. I don't know where it's headed, but I want to find out. Together, Hannah's, her heart racing, her voice barely audible. You're right. This is complicated, but I'm not ready to let go of it either. They stand in silence, the unspoken emotions heavy between them. The truth is, neither of them knows what to do next. The merger is still on the table, but so is their growing personal connection. The business world is cutthroat. And love, especially love with someone who has been a competitor, is the last thing they need. But the pull they feel toward each other is undeniable. Finally, James reaches out, his hand brushing hers. The touch is light but filled with promise. James's, quietly, "We'll figure it out. But I need you to know that I'm in this with you. Whatever it takes." Hannah nods, her heart pounding in her chest. For the first time, she feels the weight of their situation. This isn't just about the merger anymore. It's about their future, their lives. And as they stand together, side by side, there's no turning back from the path they're about to walk. A week later, the atmosphere at James's office is tense, filled with an energy that's hard to ignore. The day of the final board meeting is here, the moment when Hannah and James must either seal the deal for the merger or let everything fall apart. But despite the importance of the merger, both of them are consumed by the other. The complexities of their emotions and the unspoken tension between them have been hanging over everything like a shadow, making it difficult for either of them to focus on work. As James walks into the conference room, the usual air of confidence isn't there. He's been prepared for this moment for weeks, but today feels different. He's not just concerned about the merger anymore. He's concerned about Hannah. About them. Everything has changed. He walks to the front of the room and sets down the documents, but his mind is elsewhere. The moment he looks up, his eyes meet Hannah's. She's sitting at the other end of the table, poised and ready, but he sees something in her eyes that mirrors his own uncertainty. For a second, time seems to slow down, and they both realize that this isn't just about business anymore. The stakes have shifted. The meeting begins with the usual discussions, financials, projections, risks, and opportunities. But no matter how hard they try to focus, their interactions are colored by the tension that exists between them. Every glance, every word spoken, feels like it's charged with an energy that has little to do with the merger. Finally, after the final presentations are made, James clears his throat, standing at the head of the table, his voice steady but full of the weight of the moment. James's, firmly but with a slight tremor. This merger is more than just a business decision. It's about our company's futures, and it's about the trust we have in each other. I know there are risks, but I also know that this is the right move for both of us. We can't afford to back down now. There's a long silence as the board members exchange glances. The air is thick with anticipation, but Hannah knows this moment is pivotal, not just for the merger, but for their relationship. Hannah's cutting through the silence, confident but with a hidden vulnerability. "I agree, James, but there's something else we need to address, something that can't be ignored. Our personal relationship. We can't continue this project without being honest with ourselves." The words hit the room like a bombshell. For a moment, everyone goes still. James looks at her, his expression unreadable, but his heart races. He's been dreading this moment, but now it's here. He knows she's right. This isn't just about business anymore. James's, quietly, as he steps forward, "Hannah, ... We both know this isn't just about the merger. I can't pretend anymore. But I also know that the stakes are too high for us to let our feelings get in the way of the deal." The tension in the room is palpable. Hannah stands up, walking toward James slowly, her eyes never leaving his. She's prepared for this moment, prepared to lay everything on the line. Hannah's. With quiet strength, "We can't keep hiding from what's real. James, if we're going to make this work, whether it's the business or us, we need to be honest. And we need to choose, once and for all, what we're willing to risk. The silence in the room stretches longer, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. Finally, after a few agonizing seconds, James speaks again, his voice firm but full of resolve. James is with conviction. I choose you, Hannah. I know we've crossed a line, and I know this will complicate everything, but I'm not going to let it stop me from doing what's right for both of us. We can make this work. Together. Hannah's heart skips a beat at his words. She's heard him say things like this before, but this time, it's different. This time, she believes him. She knows the road ahead won't be easy, but, for the first time, she feels like they're on the same side. Hannah's, with a soft smile, her eyes filled with determination. Then let's make it work. James, let's do this. Together, the room explodes into applause. The board has seen enough. They're ready to move forward with the merger. But for James and Hannah, the real work is just beginning. They've admitted their feelings for each other, and now they must find a way to navigate their future, both in business and in love. A month later, the merger has been completed successfully, and both companies are moving forward with the new vision. But for James and Hannah, the journey they've embarked on together goes beyond business. It's a new chapter in their lives, one filled with both challenges and possibilities. The sun is setting over the city, casting a golden glow through the windows of James's office. Hannah stands beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They're not just partners in business anymore. They're partners in life. James's content, but filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. We did it, Hannah. We took a huge risk, and it paid off. But we're just getting started. Hannah's, softly, her voice full of warmth. I know. And no matter what happens, we'll face it together. This is just the beginning, James. They stand in silence, looking out over the city, a city that has witnessed both their professional triumphs and their personal growth. Together, they've built something new, something strong. And though the road ahead may still have obstacles, they know they're ready to face it all, side by side, as the camera pulls back. We see James and Hannah standing together, united in their love and their business ventures, ready to take on whatever challenges come next. The future is uncertain, but with each other, they know they can navigate anything.